Black Panther comes out and it's this ridiculous hit. So they come to us who are making this cartoon show, which we had begged them almost over a year ago, please just let us see the script. We could literally make this thing sort of match. If you'll just let us. No. They're like, hey, would it be great if you guys did this, and this with this cartoon now? And we were like, yeah, that would have been great 18 months ago. We're not doing any of what you just said.
Super happy to be joined by Geoffrey Thorne. He is a writer, a showrunner. He's written for Law & Order. He's written Star Trek novels. That's cool. So cool.
This is the book that I told my first Star Trek story to. There's this thing that everybody calls the singer pitch. It's not the singer pitch. It's the Geoff Thorne pitch. There's a Shakespeare out there that would never have gotten near our eyes if not for the level of technology that we have. Another writer was like, Jesus, you were just pivoting. And I was like, I was pirouetting. I sold them a freaking story.
Best advice as a writer.
Are you an orchard or are you a tree?
Avengers! And action!
Assemble.
Super happy to be joined by Geoffrey Thorne. He is a writer, a showrunner, really a full-on genre architect. And I'm a fan of genre. So this is going to be fun.
Too.
Jeff quit acting cold turkey in 2000 to bet everything on writing, which is a bold move. And it paid off. He's written for Law & Order, Criminal Intent, Leverage, The Librarians, Marvel's Spider-Man, and Avengers, and even created Marvel's first original character in nearly a decade. He's written Star Trek novels. That's cool. So cool. Show ran Avengers, Black Panther's Quest, and co-founded Genre 19. Basically fits sci-fi, superheroes, or smart genre storytelling. He's been there. Let's get into it. Geoffrey, can I start at the beginning here? I got to start with that bold move. That decision that you made to bet on yourself and go cold turkey. I mean, if anywhere this podcast needs to start, I think it needs to start with betting on oneself. How did you make that decision? Just tell me how that came about. Like, that's not an easy thing to do. And I feel like that is in many ways the dream of people who want to start in the business.
Well, I think you got to remember times are different back then. This was it wasn't pre-internet for me. I've been on the internet since 1987 or something. But it was pre what we think of as the internet. I was shooting a show in Georgia, which meant minimum 3 or 4 months of the year I was not in Los Angeles, which meant I couldn't work on my career at all. There was no way to run out to an audition or do a quick guest spot on some other thing or do even a little movie or something, because there's no way to build that up so that it was waiting for you when you left for your hiatus. Again, something we don't really mess around with anymore because there's no seasons. It's all happening at all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, with no real advice from anyone, I had my advisors were very pro studio. They were not pro actors. So my agents all got fired at exactly the same time because I was forced to renegotiate everything. They're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I would like to go away now. And they were like, but you're making us all so much money. And I was like, I don't wish to be here anymore. But it was really a matter of, I was a Black actor. When I was an actor, I remained Black. And there weren't a lot of opportunities for the kind of work I wanted to do. It wasn't a matter of being the star of anything or whatever. It was that in the landscape now, you see Black actors doing all manner of nonsense, just any old thing. There are Black actors in Westeros, for God's sakes, you know. And at that time, the pickings were pretty small. I was looking down the barrel of a career where I was not going to be pretty enough to be Denzel. I wasn't going to be street enough to be Wesley. It wasn't funny enough to be Eddie. I was none of the big enough things, or even an aggregate so my career was basically going to be, I was going to be Uncle Phil on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air forever, or I was going to be lawyer / cop / thug number 7 on this week's episode of Cop Show X or Lawyer Show X. And I was like, that is not for Jeff. I like robots. I like elves. I like there's only one show and it's Star Trek. And that means at best, I'm going to get one guest spot a week on maybe this season of whatever Star Trek is up at the time. And I just was looking at a future that it did not appeal to me. I had been a writer. My first professional sale was when I was 14 years old, was the first thing that I sold.
That's young.
And
congratulations
I was
for that.
on my path towards that. I wanted to basically do comics and sci-fi novels and things like that. But I wouldn't call myself introverted, but I was a very sort of step back sort of kid. I was the kid who would observe first and then participate. I wasn't nervous about interacting, but I wanted to see who was what and what the all the equities were before I would wade into a pool, basically. My dad did not like that, so he sort of pushed me towards acting, and so that caused an almost 15-year detour because once I started acting, not as a profession, just as sort of, I need my son to be able to be more gregarious. And I was
Mhm.
like, I don't need that. I am fine as I am, sir. But I took to it and I started working as an actor right away and never really struggled
Were you writing during
doing
that
it.
time? Were you writing during that time?
I've never not written. There's not been a period since I was 7 where I wasn't writing a story or a play or something like that. Like I hit the ground running with, I think the first book that I read that made me want to also write was probably the Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander. Probably kids don't know that anymore because that was big in the like 70s and into the 80s. Disney did a terrible movie called The Black Cauldron. Bypass this movie. It is terrible. Go and read them damn books. But what they did was I'm not one of the people who ever wanted to be like, I'm really a magician or I'm really going to go and shoot people as James Bond or something. I always was how did they do that kind of kid? How did they make that trick work? Like, how does the transporter work? Not in reality, because that's nonsense. How did they do that effect?
That's like
Right?
me. I grew up as a Jewish kid in Montreal, and if you know anything about Jewish kids in Montreal, they grow up for some reason with magic in their DNA. So I feel very much like we're like aligned on that front. Knowing how the thing worked is
Right.
so much of how I grew up as well.
Yeah,
So
so
cool that you
like
say that.
that, you wanna get behind it,
Yeah.
right? You wanna how do you do it? I wanted to wear the Star Trek uniform, but I didn't wanna do it as cosplay or in real life. If I was gonna do it, I wanted to be on the Enterprise. If I was gonna do it, I wanted to write an episode, right? Like that. But the 15-year detour was, with the exception of college, where I probably should learn how to do this because 'cause I've been working and I don't know what I'm doing. So, went to college and, that was the period of time where I did not work, right? We weren't allowed to while we were in college, and then I came to LA, and within about 8 months of hitting the ground, within that first year, I started booking gigs, so I didn't go th I mean, I had regular jobs and stuff, but it was every year was regular job plus acting, and
So
every
you
year
were
would be
booking
more.
gigs now for how long were you like a really an actor before you made that transition to being a
Almost
professional
15
writer?
years. Almost 15 years, like, almost
Do you
15 years,
consider do
20
you
if
con
you count yeah, if you count from teenage years,
yeah.
almost 20.
Do you consider that a detour in your career, or did you learn things along the way that you feel made you a better writer?
It made me a better professional writer in this regard. I was on sets all the time.
Mhm.
All the time. So one of the things that you learn, they don't really do this anymore. The business has shifted so much away from teaching people how to run shows, which is foolish, but that's a whole other TED talk. Writers would go to the set, but most writers on their first gig, they call it producing your own episode, right?
Yeah.
So you send you to the set, but for the most part, that's the first time a lot of writers have ever been to any set, like a commercial set. Most people don't go to college to make films. So when they would go to a set, that would be literally the first time ever. And so that's sort of a learn as you go environment. Don't step on the cables. Don't get in the way. You don't want to be in the actor's eye line. Don't bug the director unless it's important. All kinds of crazy stuff that you would never be taught in a textbook ever.
Mhm.
Right. But I grew up on sets, what we used to call a baby writer. That's not de rigueur anymore. But when I was a baby writer, there was never a problem. I'd grown up, literally grown up on movie and TV sets. So I was at home, just perfectly at home, knew where everything was, knew how it all worked. So that was one. It made me feel more like a pro to the other pros than what should have happened, which was a learn as you go. I kept being the guy who already knew stuff. So
Right.
that was great. I think being an actor for some writers, probably for me as well, I have been called out on my ability to do different kinds of dialogue voices where my characters, I have a kind of a rule when I'm running things, if possible, it's not always possible, but you should be able to tell who's talking regardless of whether the names are on the script or not. You should go, that's Jeff talking, he talks like that, right? I believe that that probably comes from having an ear for dialogue, which is developed in the rhythms of having to do dialogue, to have to say dialogue. A lot of writers write things that look good on the page, not just not modern writers, I mean in general.
Mhm.
Writers of stage and screen write things that look good, but when the actor gets the words in their mouth, it's like, would anyone say this way? Like this particular guy, that's a little bit kind of elevated language for a guy who literally grew up in the gutter. The movie is called Gutter, and this guy grew up in it. Why is he speaking this Shakespearean stuff unironically? Right? So that doesn't happen with dialogue I write, which was called, I didn't know I was doing this, but actors would come to me and say this, like, "This
How
feels
did
more naturalistic."
That's a really hard thing to do. We work with a lot of writers in this, that as a talent, I feel. Is there any like advice you would give to writers to, I know that it's something I was going to talk about a little bit later, but as you bring it up, any tips, tricks, things you would tell
Okay,
writers?
there's a couple of things. There's no good or bad, okay?
Right.
One is Aaron Sorkin, and one is David Simon, okay? David Simon began his career essentially as a reporter. So his training, if you will, is I'm going to interview people and I'm going to accurately report what they say and the way they say it, because sometimes the way they say it is nuanced and that needs to be in my story that's going to go into my newspaper that people are going to read. So I can't like elevate or edit or do any of that stuff. So when you see things like The Wire, considered one of the biggest black, quote unquote, black shows ever on TV in history, when you see that, but you look at the people who wrote it and it's a bunch of white guys and it was a bunch of ex-reporters, all of them were beat reporters who had been trained that way. Cool. That is a way to go. Basically, the advice to be that kind of writer would be listen to how people talk. Do not insert yourself. If their syntax is incorrect, don't correct it, right? That's the way people talk, right? Then you start adding in things like character. I am a fairly frenetic, boisterous type of person. So I speak very quickly. And when I get excited, I move faster and faster and faster. You can literally write those rhythms into your dialogue without saying, now he's speaking faster. You can just start using more clipped words, shorter words, faster and faster and faster will tell the actor the rhythm of what they're, if they're good at their job. Now, not all actors are good enough at this. Okay, so that's the David Simon version. Over here, you have the Aaron Sorkin version. Now, I love Aaron Sorkin's work. So before, this is not a criticism, it is in no way a negative, it is simply a way to go.
Mhm.
Everyone in an Aaron Sorkin piece talks like Aaron Sorkin, every
Yes.
single person. Okay. Now, if you can do it,
If you can do it.
like, right? If the way Aaron Sorkin talk writes is amazing and it's appealing, more importantly, it doesn't have to be amazing, but it does have to be appealing to the person listening to it. The rhythms are familiar, they become familiar. Oh, the president talks just like the janitor. Okay. But what and how they're saying it appeals to you and draws you in, great, go with God. And that is what we would call sort of mannered writing, mannered, where the writer's hand is visible,
Right.
right? So if your hand is visible and you want me to know you wrote this, then that's the way you would go. So the advice is still for the same at the base is you have to listen to people. You literally have to eavesdrop. You have to be at a restaurant, possibly alone, possibly with a date. Your date should be annoyed with you because why are you paying more attention to the people in the next booth? Well, that conversation is very interesting. You don't care about wrestling. Yeah, but the way that they're having the conversation is very interesting, right? This guy never uses pronouns for some reason. I find this fascinating, right? Um, but you have to listen. You have to listen to people and you cannot censor the way people actually talk, right? Then you have the choice as the writer later to go, okay, now that I've heard this and I understand this, people from Boston know how people from Boston sound. So if you're going to set
Right.
your city in
Yeah.
Boston and you're not from Boston, you better go listen to some Bostonians. And I mean, really go listen, like, because they're going to know and it's going to make your work suck.
Yeah. Got it.
So
No, that,
that's
first of all, I love the duality of the way that you just frame that, and just listening to you talk and explain that, it just brings so much more intentionality to even the way I'm just going to think about the way I read scripts and the way I, as a producer, will give notes. And it's just very insightful. Thank you for that. I want to transition to what you would consider maybe not the first thing that you got a writing assignment on, but the thing that you would consider to be your quote unquote break, if there was one. Was there one thing that sort of stands out as, hey, this is the thing that got me to the next level? Or was it more a series of smaller baby steps?
two things. Criminal Intent was an interesting job because I came in with a partner. We're friends, but we're not partners anymore. It was both of our first big gig. I had sold stories with option to buy to two other shows in the past, but those are kind of like they're gimmies. This basically the company buys your thing. They buy the story you pitch them, but you may probably, in fact, won't be the writer on it. They just really like the story. So they give you a contract that says, here's the first half, here's some money, go away now. We may call you. And
Right.
generally they do not because they already have their writers and now they have your story. So what do they need you for? Right. So I did that twice before. I was approached by a lady who had a means of getting to the front of the line to pitch new shows to the Dick Wolf Company. Problem was she was a romantic comedy writer and did not know how to write crime or had never written crime is a better way of saying there's no such thing as I only write rom-coms, therefore I can't write war movies. That's nonsense. But she hadn't done it. So the learning curve of doing it, she thought would be too steep. Then the window would be closed and there would not be this opportunity. Basically, Dick Wolf's company developed everything in-house except for this weird, strange period of time where for some reason, which I still don't know, they had decided we're going to hear some pitches for new shows, right? And she was in the pipeline to be able to know that without it being public knowledge. I want to access this, but I don't have the necessary skill set to make me confident to do it. So a mutual friend of ours says, "Hey, Jeff writes crime. Why don't you guys talk?" So basically, long story short, we came up with a pitch for a show that she had wanted to develop for them. We went in and pitched it, and they went, "We're not doing that. You two are idiots. We're not doing that." However, would you like to be staff writers? And I was like, hell yes. Are you high? Absolutely. She was doing a much more highly paid job at the time. So she had to think about it. And
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me? But
Sign me up.
but the reason she had to think about it was massive pay cut for her. She's a single mom with a kid, and in the case of a writing team, you are paid as a single individual. So the same writing money that I would have gotten as just Jeff was now split between the two of us, and that was a pay cut for her and a pay raise for me. So she had to think about it, but ultimately we did it. Now, what had happened prior to that was I'd been trying to get on the TV show Leverage. One of the scripts that I'd sold, story with option to buy, was to the first season of Leverage, but I had no credits. So although the two showrunners really liked me, the executive producers would not sign off. The guy he's done nothing in our industry. He's only done comics and books. We're not here for that, right? We're not going to let this be his test case. We're not doing that. So for 2 seasons, I could not get arrested at the show I really wanted to be on, which was Leverage. It was a heist show. Come on, that's like dead center of my wheelhouse. But I couldn't get on because I had no credit. So now I'm hired on to Criminal Intent. The showrunner of Leverage, John Rogers, had taken me out as sort of a condolences prize to say, yeah, you're not going to be on season 3 either. We tried our best, but no. But here's this lavish meal I'm going to buy you, right?
It was a good uphill. It was on him.
It
I
was
had
fantastic. It was that.
Oh,
When does that ever happen? A showrunner takes you out to let you down easy?
he must have
It's
liked
class,
me.
baby.
He must have liked me.
Class. Right. Well, they liked the story. So anyway, we didn't make it to the end of the first season. Back those days, seasons were 20 plus episodes long, and the season of writing was bifurcated, basically 20 weeks and then another 20 weeks. And
Yep.
if you made it past 20 week one, then you're probably going to be on that show for a while. We did not make that cut. We hit the middle of it, and we were asked to please not return. My agent was like bummed out. This is around Christmas time, by the way. I was very upset.
That's a bad time to
This
get
was
that
my
notice.
big break. This was my big break. Right. But my agent was like, hey, you were friendly with those Leverage guys. Why don't you give them a call? I was like, he literally just took me out to tell me why I'm not going to be in the season. He's like, my agent's like, then you have nothing to lose. And I was like, but why don't you? Never mind. Fine. Fine. I emailed John, hey, looks like I'm going to be free from my obligation to the Dick Wolf Company. He's like, good, got it. He was very laconic. That was the entire email exchange. Oh, good, thank you for that info. Nothing else. A couple of weeks go by, I get another email, call your agent. Again, this could have been, hey, we're looking for a writer's room assistant. Hey, could you, and I would have taken that freaking gig, by the way. Yay. But agent's like, yeah, you're going to come on. They've some money freed up. A producer left, so now they're going to bring in 2 new staff writers. Downside is you have to stay a staff writer. Normally, when you move from one show to another, you move up in rank. Whatever. I was like, please don't negotiate. Just say yes. I have to tell my wife at Christmas that I got fired from one of the highest profile TV shows in history. Please just say yes. Do not negotiate. Right. So, but good news is that the week I cleared out my desk at Law and Order, now those guys could say to the people who did not want me because I had no credits, well, we're getting a Law and Order writer. We
Yeah,
got a
yeah, yeah.
not just a credit, we got a Law and Order writer coming over to do our heist show. So they're like, yeah, come on in. Plus, we're getting him cheap because he's a staff writer. He's coming in mid-season. So he's not going to move up in rank. But again, for me, I'm now getting all the staff writer money because my partner and I dissolved our partnership. So what used to be half is now all me.
Yes.
So it was great. And I stayed on Leverage for 3 seasons after that. And that was like the career.
So this is okay. First of all, that's amazing. I love how this thing's just they things happen for the right reason.
Timing.
Universe works. Timing is everything, but it was
Mhm.
timing. You've done, all the things required to get to that stage in your career. Now you're quote unquote a staff writer moving into this show. You've had some experience now on 2 shows. Before we get to the genre stuff that you've done, and I want to get into that a bit, but before we get there, I'd love to just hear about what you feel were your big takeaways being in a room in the early days and what you learned from that experience and what, if anything, you take into your rooms now to make your rooms better.
I think of myself as largely the same way you might if you were a high performance car mechanic. Coming from Law and Order was run by Waylon Green. Waylon Green, if nobody knows, wrote The Wild Bunch. He was one of these old school like Hollywood screenwriters, and sort of the downward slope of his massive career. I'm running a Dick Wolf TV show. That was sort of like, okay, on my way out, I'll do this little thing. It was you come in, you pitch the boss, then you descend down into your office and you basically work alone. There was no room. The show is largely episodic, so there was not a lot of needed coordination between the writers, right? We all had our own different stories to tell. So it was very quiet, very library-like, sort of college-like in some ways. We're all in our dorm rooms, essentially. Now, we all enjoyed each other and had fun, talked to each other and whatever. But John's room was more like what used to be called like a comedy room, which is what you think of when you think of a writer's room. We're all clustered around a table. We're all, yeah, 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 yeah. There was a lot of back and forth about stuff. Jokes are being told, anecdotes, blah, blah, blah. People are wildly pitching, what about this? And Leverage was the kind of show which is, in a weird way, also ripped from current events, except it was sort of backstage businessy current events, which meant a lot of research. So what I learned was don't raise your hand with a problem unless you have a solution for that problem, even if the room rejects that problem, even if they reject your solution. If you're the guy who's like, yeah, that's not going to work, and you got nothing underneath it, you're not coming back. Nobody wants that guy or gal in the room. I certainly don't. I will literally shoot your career in the face over that. It's because the easiest thing in the world is to throw a rock at a plate glass window. Anybody can stand up and say, no, the YouTube is filled with people whose whole channel is that sucked. I'm like, oh, so bottom of the barrel for you, son.
It's
Uh,
easy to give a note, right? Not so easy to
yeah.
provide an idea underneath the note.
We don't really give notes in the writer's room. So writer's room is participatory. And in some ways, I've never done a comedy room. I don't think I would survive one. Those are nakedly combative. They are joke, 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 joke. Whoever's the best joker, most consistently, doesn't matter if you're nice, you could have a massive cocaine habit. I do not care. You could be cheating on me with my wife. I do not care. That's the best joke, right? But it's brutal, right? It is brutal. Our kind of writer's room was in a similar vein, but it wasn't anywhere near that cutthroat. It wasn't
Right.
anywhere near that. So what you get is a collaboration. If you do it right, you want to staff your room with different kinds of writers. So in John's case, he had different ethnicities, different age groups, and also different kinds of sort of writer training. He's a geek himself, so we already were simpatico in that way. But I was the pet geek. I knew everything about comics. I knew everything about science fiction. I knew everything about fantasy without having to run to the internet. Like, this is, oh, you mean like when Ray Bradbury said blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's, that cool thing, that really obscure writer over here who's now huge and whatever. Like, I was that guy. Then we had a person who was deeply into theater, like all kinds of theater, or we had two chemists. Well, we had a chemist and a mathematician, and John himself was a physicist. So there was all kinds of crap going on. So you want a room that's diverse in this way. You want ethnically, you want it gender, you want age diversity, you want pros, and you want noobs. You want people who are literally Brad spanking new, and you want people who are long in the tooth, because the newbies are going to come up with things. Oh, we always thought we couldn't do that. And the newbie will go, why? Why can't you just do that? Like,
Right.
why can't we just do that? Well, was this because we've never done that? That's stupid. Let's do what the newbie said. Right. And then the vet will be like, yeah, that's way too complex. Just do this, 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 and this, and you'll get you where you want to go. And the newbie will go, huh. I would have gone over that whole bridge thing, and you guys just did a rope. Yep.
Right.
Because
Yeah, yeah.
back in '64 on the set on the Rod Serling series that I worked on, blah 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 blah. Blah, we had exactly this, so you want that, right? And you want at least, if you can get it, half women. Doesn't have to be the same kind of woman. In fact, you don't want the same kind of woman. You want half dudes, right? They don't have to be straight dudes, but they don't have to be the same skin color, or age, or anything. But you want so that there's a diversity of approach to problem solving.
Right.
Because a lot of what writers' rooms are is problem solving. It's not the story part's the easy, fun part. The problem solving is what the room is for. What did I learn? You're the writer. Writing is a solitary activity. At its heart, it's a solitary activity. At some point, you're gonna kick out the you world, and it's just you and your keyboard. And when you come in with a pitch, it started with just you and your keyboard, or just you and your notepad. It's you and your head. Then you come into the room and you go, "Hey, boss, I want to do an episode about, let's say it's Hogan's Heroes. We're going to full clink in this way, and we're going to bring in this actress, this French actress, and she's going to do all this stuff. And you've worked out every intricacy and everything like that." And the boss is like, I like the bones of it, but the thing with the French actress, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And if you can't solve it with your next question, like with your next response, then the room gets it. The other 8 writers get to sink their teeth in. And by the end of that conversation, let's say, the thing you pitched doesn't exist anymore. It's this completely other thing, right? You have to be okay with that. You have to learn that your ego is no longer required. You
Right.
Your ego's good enough to get you there and to make you strong enough to pitch, right? You have to have a certain amount of ego for that. It's a lie to say that you don't. You're basically saying, I have a story that should be on this show. That's an ego move. So own it. It's great. But you're there to serve the desires, the campaign, if you will. A military campaign is being orchestrated by the showrunner. So as much as you want to tell this story, the story must also please them, not the room, the showrunner. And if the showrunner evidences, 70%, but we're going to need to work on this 30%. You have to understand that as soon as they say that there's something that's not 100%, it's going to be 100% not whatever you pitched at the at the end of the conversation, right? And that has to be okay. I watch many a writer come in and really get tense and back up and fight back, like, no, I must protect my baby. And I'm like, you're not going to get asked back if you keep this up. Once the room has it, the room gets to chew it up. That's the way it works. So I learned that. Check your ego at the door, because, like I said, I came from writing books and comics and, again, very solo activities. You have to work in the team. Team writing is a thing. It doesn't mean they team write the episode, but getting the story to the place where it becomes an episode, that's a team effort. A lot of these rules are a little bit different now because of the Zoom meetings and shorter seasons and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
be there, be there before your boss. Don't leave till your boss leaves. Simple stuff. Here's a good one. Be the person who's helpful. Not I'm the savior, but like, I'm here to help. Right. I foolishly, because we were getting swamped at one point. I don't know if this is a recommendation, because it backfired on me, but we were wrestling with a particular episode break. The room was just banging our heads on the ground, and we sort of finally got somewhere by the end of this week. It was taking up too much time to even get there. We were all just like, this thing's a dog. Oh my God. Right. We finally got somewhere where we all didn't hate it, but it was coming up on a Friday night. And it was like, all right, we'll revisit on Monday. We're going to have to assign whoever writes the outline. Like, someone will be assigned to write this thing into an outline. I just said, screw it. Well, everybody was so bummed. It was just so beat down. So over the weekend, I wrote the outline and turned it in on Monday. Say, look, save you the problem. This is way easier. Even if you beat up this outline, it's easier than having to go through all that again. Like, the 2 showrunners were like, oh, he clearly wants to write this episode, which I really did not want to. I also thought it was a dog, right? They're
Oh,
like,
you solved
have
it?
it, Jeff. Yeah, I solved it apparently. But it was like, hey, Jeff, clearly you've made a play for the episode no one wants to write. And I was like, well, I also don't want to write. Like, too late for that. End of the day, what you want, the showrunner's job is so hectic, and there's so much more going on than just sitting in the writer's room with, your buddies telling cool stories, that if you can be the person where, oh, Jeff's here, it doesn't mean they have something for Jeff to do, but every time you walk in, you're not adding to the shelf of problems.
Do you feel that the showrunners that you worked with, they had different ways of breaking story? Like, or did you feel that the rooms at the end of the day all sort of regress to, I don't know, the fundamentals? You know what I mean? Like, the different
It
rooms that you,
depends.
yeah.
It
Okay.
depends. Like, if the room's full of veterans, then it's very shorthand. It's a lot of joking around, and everyone knows how it works. So a room full of people who've only ever all been on shows before, that room is unless there's personality conflicts, it's very copacetic. It's very quick. Things go up on the boards, either a cork board like I have or
Yep.
a whiteboard or whatever, but things go up fast, or if they get taken down, we all go, "No, that's not a work, zip it out." Like it's like a speed mechanics at a Formula One race. The way that you break, it varies from the personality of whoever's running the show. When we work, I don't know if John still works this way. John's a good example because he ran his shows like a teaching hospital in a way. He really was trying to build future showrunners, like on purpose. So
Which is sort of
we had to
missing
do it.
today, right? That's sort of missing today as a
Gone,
that's an
gone.
so, okay, so can you walk me through? I'm gonna just I know this is such a
Yeah,
meta
yeah, yeah.
question, and probably not the
No, no,
question
go.
that you want to spend your time answering here, but I am just genuinely so curious from the pros that you've worked with, and you've worked with the best,
Okay.
when they start to break story and they're putting these things up on the board, what do you see the best people in the business, including yourself, do in the room?
Okay. The way I like it, it's my process is a sort of a kludge of John's process. We get a room full of people. Theoretically, they know the show. They read the Bible. They've read your pilot that you wrote because you're the showrunner. If I'm the showrunner,
Yeah.
all right. Here's what I want to do. I give them a little speech about, okay, everybody's read it. Everybody kind of knows what the characters are. So we think we all know they're going to mutate because we haven't cast anybody yet. Whatever, all of that. But end of the day, the writers' room, even if it's a sort of a soap opera show like Grey's Anatomy, they should come in with their own ideas for story. Like character X, maybe they can go through this, or I just saw this thing in my small hometown. That would be great for this news show that we're doing. Like we could throw that in, like that kind of thing. So we go around the room, we do all that. But at some point, we come down to scenes we want to see. What do we want to see? Just forget story. What do we want to see happen this season? What kind of crap do we want to just for sure see? Right. And we put those toys up on the board. Just a cluster of this would be cool if this location would be amazing if we know where we're shooting. For instance, we all walked around Portland at one point. And it was like, oh my God, we got to do something with that library or whatever, things like that. And that goes up on the board. And since we already know what the pilot is, because the showrunner wrote it, we start talking about what will the season arc be. Like I want to get, and I as a showrunner would say, this character needs to be from here to here. No idea how we get there, but they have to end here for whatever I want to do for season two. These two are going to end up being a couple that's not apparent in the pilot because they didn't want it to be, but the two people who are at loggerheads at the beginning, by the middle, they should start, blah, blah, blah. So we start doing all of that kind of conversation and folding in the pitches. So people have been pitching out their stuff that is not scenes we want to see, but actual story ideas. And we just start winding it down. And you start to we start macro, basically. You start looking at the whole earth and you start zeroing it down, zeroing it down, zeroing it down until you're looking at just New York. And then you're looking at Manhattan. And then you're looking at this particular street in Manhattan. And then you're looking at this particular office in Manhattan. And then you're looking at these three people who work in that office. And that's how you get down. And what are the stories? Who are the cores? All of that kind of stuff. When you're working on somebody else's show, really it's just you read the pilot, you read the show Bible if there is one. You would have come in. For me, I think part of the reason I got on Leverage or why they liked me so much is that I did an overkill because I didn't know what the rules were. My first pitch for Leverage, I had more than 15 pitches memorized, ready to go. And then I had another 10 springboards, which were not full pitches, but like, this would be cool if I don't know, I haven't explored it yet, but yeah, you guys explored this world, basically,
Right.
this story world, right? So every time they said no to a pitch, I'd be like, well, you guys have more time. I have more to say. They're like, sure, go. And I would pitch them something equally fleshed out. And they're like, you're not looking at notes. Oh, you asked me this question before. That's something I got from being an actor. My memorization was off the chart for a writer, off the chart. Like, I didn't realize this was a thing, but I came in with basically a gigantic monologue memorized, gigantic. And they would go, okay, cut to later in the monologue. And I'm like, all right, we're now talking about cats. Go.
Those are some acting skills, that the memorization of lines, right? And all
Yeah.
that?
But what it meant was it was a
Yeah.
conversation rather than a pitch,
Right.
right? The pitch is very performative. Another thing, and this is another thing for writers across all the board. This I learned when I was an intern. I interned, ironically, at Star Trek: The Next Generation. It was my first Hollywood job.
Which
Season 3.
Season
Michael
3,
Piller's
okay.
first season. Yeah.
just started
Michael
getting
Piller!
good.
Just started getting good in season 3.
Yeah, he took over and it zoom, right? Michael was the shit. I love that guy. But I got to sit in on all the pitches, and Star Trek at the time was a show that took freelancer pitches. So these people would send in a story idea and, oh, this is great. And there'd be non-professional writers, right? This would be their first thing ever. They're basically Star Trek fans with a really good idea and some writing talent. So they come in and then they pitch and they look down at their sheet and their voices would be all quiet and they never would look up and make eye contact with the people they were pitching to. And I'm the intern just sort of taking notes or whatever. But I was like, this guy's not going to make it because I was a performer. And I was like, he's not making eye contact with the audience. He's not reaching his audience. He doesn't think that his job involves that. He thinks his job is just to be a writer.
Right.
But it isn't.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to meet these people because they're making the decision. I got to work with this guy for a minimum of a couple of weeks to a month if he's just a freelancer coming in or out. If he's going to be on staff, that's months and months of being in a room with this dud. Hell no. He could be Hemingway. I'm not wasting my time on this guy, right? Or lady. So you have to learn how to engage your audience to some degree. That I definitely got from having been a performer without thinking, oh, here I am performing. It was just comfortable in those rooms. I was never in any way, my pulse would never go up, ever. Never, never. And I recommend that.
I want to switch gears a little bit and just move to the difference between working on, say, these shows that either came with a Bible or a history, and then moving into worlds that are have larger IP around them, and how you, I don't know, work or assimilate the world and then start to work in that world relative to its the rules and constraints of, Star Trek and Avengers. And I know some of this is comic stuff and but like,
Yeah.
and then you're working with a studio. Like where does like how did you make that transition into getting into that space? And then once you're in it, how did you manage it?
It sucks. Just straight out. There's a lot of
Not the answer I was expecting.
I don't want to. Well, see, it's a problem with being the kind of writer I am. I don't care about all the Hollywood hierarchies and who's a big star and who's the head of the studio. I don't care about any of that. I'm not doing it as a political, like, oh, I'm an anti-establishment. It's not like that. It's that only thing I care about is telling the best story possible. So anything that's in the way of that causes friction with me, right?
And you're
And
saying that
yes,
the tone of everything that's come before it is that the friction in this world?
no, no, it's more like, okay, when you're working on an established IP, depending on who's in charge of the overall IP, the executive class that's in charge of it, now you can get some great ones. And they're like, okay, I understand how the fans of this work. I understand the mechanics of why. Well, let's just choose X-Men. I've never worked on the X-Men, so it's an easy thing to talk about. I kind of get how the fans of the X-Men work. I kind of get how the mechanics of this story world works. I see why we can translate it to a larger audience. So I'm going to let you guys cook for the most part, unless you step out of line. Right, unless you do something that's just like, "No, we're not doing that," for some legal or other reason, right? Then you're handed off the Bible of the X-Men, and you go, "Okay, what stories can I tell in this vein? What kind of show does the company want me to make out of these X-Men characters?" And then it's sort of like a pitch. You're like, "This is the story I can tell under these constraints. This is the story I'd like to tell under these rules and guidelines. What do you guys think?" Or guys and ladies think. And they say, "Yeah, go with that." And you start going. But as you go, one, the personnel of the people who said, "Yeah, go with that," that shifts all the time. And the company goals for the project, which takes, especially in animation, takes a long time to make. So let's say every animated show you see started 2 years before you saw it minimum, right? So over that 2 years, there's a lots of personnel changes above your pay grade. And there's also company shifts about what they think their product should be doing. But you've agreed to do this contractually agreed thing like 18 months ago or
So,
whatever,
that
right?
happens on a consistent basis? So you're just like in that
It's
world that
regular
no
enough.
regular than
It's
you would
regular enough.
yeah.
It's regular enough that somebody's gonna come up with, "We'd like this to happen," and you have to kinda say, either you pivot, which I'm the king of, I can generally accommodate, which is apparently a skill I did not know I possessed, but another writer was like, "Jesus, you were just pivoting, pivoting, pivoting," and I was like, "I was pirouetting," you know? But, but basically it is they'll throw you a snag that comes out of left field from a story point of view. Why would you want anyone to do that? They have a very valid reason business-wise for why they want you to do it, which is none of your business. They don't tell you any of that because it doesn't influence the story anyway. They just say, we need you to do X." And then you have to either push back on that and say, "We can't do X because," and generally it's, "We're too far along in the process. We cannot make that course correct at this point unless you're willing to give us more time and spend more money," which they never want to do. So you win the argument. They never want more time or more money. Right? It's, "Yeah, we can do it for X amount of dollars."
Can you give
But
just is there like a specific example of I don't know,
Yes.
thinking maybe it's like either like a film, a film
Let
problem that maybe
Here
interests. Yeah.
here's a
About
perfect example.
Okay.
Here's a perfect example.
I love it.
When I was running the Black Panther's Quest season of Avengers, we were having a great time. We were cooking along, but two things went wrong because of the corporate structure, which is different. Now, again, I have an encyclopedic knowledge of Marvel Comics prior to any of you, all you people out in the world finding about these movies and TV. La, 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 la. I have 50,000 comics. I've been reading these things since I was like some crazy childlike age. I started reading my dad's comics. I started with The Shadow and like Terry and the Pirate and crazy stuff the kids today don't even know what they are. Flash Gordon, right? So by the time I get in that box, again, I don't need a reference library. I don't need a reference assistant or go to Google. I just know stuff they didn't even know about things they own. So it made it very easy to pitch the show. They're like, oh, great. This is a character because, for instance, you can't use the Submariner character because the Fantastic Four is currently owned by Sony, and we can't do anything with any of the Fantastic Four characters, even though this particular story would be very much enhanced by the use of the Submariner. However, they do not own Atuma. I say, what about Atuma? And they're like, oh yeah, Atuma, like that, right? So it's great when you have that. That's the fun of having a deep lore IP that goes back before you were born. All of that, that's the comfort zone because there's so much that you can draw from. You can always grab another character that's similar. There's a story arc that you didn't think of that you can expand out. All of that's great, right? The problem was when we started making Black Panther's Quest, the Black Panther movie was still in production. It had not come out. And that particular company is very much like we do not want the right hand to know what the left hand is doing. So even though we were making essentially ancillary material to this show, this movie they were about to make, because everything is movie at the top, live action TV show second, animated TV show third, comic books dead last, way down dead last, right? It's inverted. It shouldn't be like that. Too bad. But it just that's wrong, but that's the way it is. So what they would not let us know was anything about this movie because they were terrified of leaks. And I was like, I'm the showrunner of a show that's technically based on a movie that's upcoming. You've timed it so we're going to come out the summer after the movie comes out to sort of capitalize on all that. You're already making merch about all these things. Can I see the script of the movie? No. Can I know something about the characters? No. Can I know anything about what the dress code or the loose plot? No. You're cold. Go do your thing, right?
Oh,
Now, it sounds bad, but I was like, really? Just go do my thing, you say, right? So I'm like, okay.
Uh-oh.
And they were fine. Everybody was fine, right? What happened was while we're making, because remember, they're in production, but we just started. So we're still making our show when the movie comes out. Black Panther comes out, and it's this ridiculous hit. Wherever they tell you after the fact, absolutely no one expected that. They did not expect it. They thought it was going to do Ant-Man numbers, and that would have been perfectly fine. It had an Ant-Man budget. We're expecting it to do Ant-Man numbers, and instead it made $1 billion freaking dollars. And they're like, holy crap. So they come to us who are making this cartoon show, which we had begged them almost over a year ago. Please just let us see the script. We could literally make this thing sort of match. If you'll just let us. No. Right. So they come to us in the middle of this thing and they're like, hey, would it be great if you guys did this, 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 and this with this cartoon now? And we were like, yeah, that would have been great 18 months ago. We're not doing any of what you just said. And they're like, excuse me, cartoon people? How dare you say no to us?
We're the movie people, right?
We're like, we're sorry, movie people. This is what we were trying to avoid 1 billion years ago when we asked you up front, can you please tell us these things, corporate people? And they're like, you're telling us we can't. And I said, can't is not the word I ever use. The word is, you want this dropped at this particular date, at this particular budget. Okay. So if you want these things to be changed, it means we're going to have to retroactively go into things that we've already done the voice records for. We've already designed characters for. In some cases, we've already begun animating. We're going to have to scrap that. We're going to have to bring all those actors back. We're going to have to either as the head writer, I'm going to have to do the rewrites to change the things to suit, or we're going to have to write entirely new episodes to suit this thing you're trying to tell us to do, which means new writers have to come in and all this has to be paid for. All of this costs you money and it's going to extend the drop date. We will not be able to meet the deadline. We were way ahead of schedule, but we're not that ahead of schedule. So no. And
and
they
then
don't like hearing no. They don't like hearing. And so I was like, this isn't me perfectly happy to do the pivot, but you guys, this is why we asked you to do this in the beginning and your little corporate structure said no. I have heard from other people who work on other IPs, similar situations happen. And that's because in the corporate upper end of it, the sea is always shifting, the sand is always shifting for them. Something will change in the stock market, some particular, like, I don't know. You knew that character X was going to blow up we thought this movie was about Cyclops and Jean, but it turns out it's really about Rogue. Can we make the show that we were making about the Black Panther? Can you shove Rogue in there now? No, we can't. We begged you for this.
Was there something specific that you saw in the movie that you're like, "Oh, that was the thing I wanted to do in the comics for the tie-in"? Was there a specific
No,
thread that you
no. Okay, this is how bad it was. I've told this before. I'm not breaching school or anything, but we were very, there were things they told us we had to use. For instance, is Killmonger going to be in the movie? Yes. Great. Well, there have been several iterations of Killmonger. Which one? Oh, don't worry about that. It's a new one. We're not going to tell you what it is. Like, it's a completely different version than any of the versions you've seen before. So great. Tell us what that is. We can put him in the show. Nah. So, and there was a flat no. There was no negotiation. Just no. We're not telling you that. So we know he's in it. We don't know what his relationship is to anybody. We know he's not what he's going to be in the comics. What do? We made up our own. Here's the thing. We didn't even know what he was going to look like. We didn't know what his age was going to be. We didn't know any of that. Right. There was one production still that they released to the public because they thought they were clever to screw with the public. Okay. Which was a picture of an African mask with horns in a museum. Right. And in the mirror of that, you see Michael B. Jordan, who we knew by the time they released this. Oh, he's been cast in the movie as Killmonger. That's all we knew. Right. So we're like, that must be Killmonger deciding what he's going to look like when he puts on his super suit. Okay. It was literally a passing moment in that scene. It had nothing to do with anything. That mask didn't show up anywhere. It was literally, I'm in a museum looking at a mask. Over here is the most important thing. That mask is completely forgotten because it had nothing to do with anything. We based his entire costume in the cartoon on that mask. He wears that mask as his Killmonger mask in the cartoon because of that one little bit of data. Okay. But
Oh my
everyone
god.
got it the same time. That's the only reason he looks that way is because we
Because
thought,
you were
oh, he
trying to
took
crib the information from a leaked
right. We
photo.
were trying to help. We wanted it
Oh,
to match, right?
oh,
We
that's
wanted to
amazing.
do everything we could to match, right? Even though they refused to help us do the thing. We wanted product synergy, right?
Oh, that is so
They
cool.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. So it's an added layer of, "Oh, Christ, really?" Now, in animation, it's much more heavy-handed in some ways. Like working on Ben 10, that was a very toy company. I wouldn't say driven, but they had a lot of say. So a lot of the time they're like, "Hey, can you make up some new aliens, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "But if I make up the alien and then you go make a toy out of it, shouldn't I get some money from the toy that you didn't invent because I invented it? And should the guy or gal who designed the look of it for the show, which you did not do either,
Well,
you're
that's a
just
great
gonna take that money?"
conversation. That's a good
Yeah.
conversation for your agent.
No, they don't. That's no. I was not by no means the first person to have this conversation, and I will not be the last. But they were like, "Ha ha, adorable." None of that's happening.
I wanna jump to Star Trek for a sec just 'cause,
Okay.
I'm also a very big Star Trek nerd. W
Woo-hoo.
you came into this so you came into the novel writing of Star Trek. Were you also involved in this I'm sorry, I should have this up, but I don't in front of me. Were you also involved in the writing of this show itself or just the novels?
My Star Trek career. All right. All right. First thing I ever sold to Hollywood was a story with option to buy to the Michael Piller era of TNG. His first season, they bought a story from me and option to script to make the script.
Mhm.
So that was my first Hollywood sale was to TNG. They did not buy it. I was still an actor at the time, so I did not notice essentially that they didn't buy it. I was on a big TV show that I had not yet quit. Part of me quitting was, wow, I like this writer stuff. This is way better than what I've been doing. This is cool. After I quit the show, the way it looks on paper is, "Oh, he just quit this show and went right into writing." And it was this no, 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 no. There was a good between 2.5, 3 year 2 to 3 years period where I was broke. Where I was doing anything. Illustrating for money. I was a short order cook, just crazy stuff, right? So, I was trying to be a screenwriter. My wife says, "Why don't you try short stories?" right? The screenwriting thing is seemingly not happening because I was trying to do features, and I was writing the kind of features like what you see now back in like 1998. Which
You just waited for VFX to catch up to you, basically.
well, also they weren't doing like superhero type stuff. They weren't
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
like Lord of the Rings type. They weren't doing any of that. I'm like, who is this black guy? Also, there was like 3 black guys writing this kind of stuff, and I literally 3 black guys writing this kind of stuff, which was a factor in those days when and might still be, I don't know, of me walking into offices and going, "You read this?" Like, oh Christ, here we go again. But she said, "Why don't you try short stories?" So I did for a minute, and I started writing short stories. Coincidentally, a friend of mine at a comic book shop I was going to, it's always circles around comic books for some reason, said, "Hey, you know, they're doing these Star Trek novels." And I was like, "I don't read those. Those are bad when I was a kid. There was like a weird period of time where they were good, and then he suddenly got shitty." And I've checked that. He said, "No, no, 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 no. You like Peter David, right? He writes comics you like. He writes them, and so writes." I was like, "What? Really?" So I went and looked, and they were great. And I was like, "Holy, these are like real science fiction novels. They just happen to be Star. Holy crap!" And I was in, like all the way in. So this same guy said, "You know, they do an open contest, right? For they're trying to find new talent, essentially, called Strange New Worlds. You should try to submit." So I went and looked at some of the books, and I was like, "Let me try." First year I did not get in, and the second year I sold. I won second prize. And I was like, at the same year I sold to the L. Ron Hubbard Writers of the Future, I sold them a freaking story. I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'm gonna go be a prose writer, and I'm gonna go." And, because of that, the internet was starting to catch up. People were on AOL and things like that now, so there's starting to be an internet community. So I basically tracked down a couple of the other or one of the other writers who was a wannabe. There was a bunch of us, like, in what we call a chat room. We're like, "Well, you sold one. Oh my god, that's amazing. You should talk to the other writers." I'm like, "I don't know them. I barely know you. Like, I don't know people." And they're like, "Yeah, but they're all on the internet too. You should talk to them. Like, they're not mean people." It turns out this guy, Dayton Ward, who was another big contest winner, was like an ongoing writer of these books now, hit him up. And I did. And he was really nice. And I was like, "Wait, what is this? This is not like Hollywood at all. What is going on?" Right. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's great. Great. Here's an editor you should hit up. I read your story. It's great. Right? You should hit up this editor. I think he'd really respond to you." And I was like, "I don't know him." He's like, "You know me now. Just tell him I told you to call him. And when he doesn't get back to you for 3 months, don't take it personally. He's wicked busy." Right? So I did that. And it literally took about 2 months. It's like, yes, because Dayton had said, "Jeff, they read all the stories. All the editors read all the winning stories. They have to, because maybe they'll get a new writer." Right. So they definitely are aware of you. Now's the time to do it. So I did. And as he predicted, Marco Palmieri, who was fantastic, wonderful, wonderful editor in person, got back to me. And long story short, that caused me to start writing professionally short stories for the Star Trek line, which culminated in Marco saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this spin-off of TNG featuring Riker and a cast of aliens, basically, because we don't have budgetary and special effects problems. We can literally put weird ass aliens on this ship. Go. Do you want to be in?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm ready." Yeah. So I did that. And I basically culminated with writing a Titan Sword of Damocles for them. I wrote a bunch of short stories for them. And then while that was going on, I was saying, "God, Hollywood is so hard," talking to a friend of mine, because so many writers are in a comic book shop. It's just writers don't help other writers never help other writers.
Well, it's hard because they don't always know it's not they don't always intersect in the same way that when you're on like a film set they intersect. So
True.
it's
That's true.
a different
And
ecosystem.
at that time, I don't know, again, I don't know what it's like now with the internet and the COVID and all the different things that have happened since, but it was very much there can be only one type of environment. It's very gladiatorial. If I get a connect and I'm not sharing it with you, that kind of thing, right? But I hear this voice out of the back going, "I'm a writer. I help other writers." And I swivel on this guy. And I'm like, "Really?" And like that look of really person I was not talking to at all. "What have you got to say?" He's like, "I'm so and so, blah blah blah. I did this little movie, or what are you talking about, Star Trek?" Right? And I was like, "Blah blah blah blah." And I was like, "I write Star Trek books." He's like, "I am the number one Star Trek fan. I have all the Star Trek books, all of them." I'm like, I guess it was a challenge. Like I was lying, and I was like, "Then you've read my work. If you claim that you've read all this stuff." He's like, "I'm going to go home and check. Like I'm warning you, it's time to back out now." And I'm like, "Take your ass home and check then, because you're gonna read my stuff." He comes back sometime later, not back to me, but we happen to be at the same shop. "Jeff Thorne." Turn around, it's this dude. "I read your stuff." I was like, "Oh, great." He's like, "It's good." I was like, "I told you it would be good." You did write this?" "I told you I wrote it." Like, why would I say all of that? Right? He's like, "I got a proposition for you." And he was hooked up with Bryan Singer, before J.J. Abrams took over the franchise, right? There are a bunch of people, of which Bryan Singer was one, who was trying to get in, right? They wanted that slot, but Singer, they were a bunch of movie guys, and they were like, was Chris McKenna was one of them maybe? And they just didn't have time. So what they wanted was basically put their stamp on something and take it in. Hey, Jeff, I read your stuff. You've got the right idea about Star Trek. Could you come up with a pilot? We got the title, Federation. We got the Okudas. They're going to do all the designs, but we need someone to do the writing. And I was like, what's in it for me? He says, well, we're not going to pay you, but you'll be on staff. You'll guaranteed staff position. And I was like, at that time, I didn't even know I should have been asking for, you mean not co-EP position? No, staff position. I didn't even know to ask that, right? So he says, yes. And I created what, if you go into the 50-year 50-year mission books, like there's the compilation of all the history of Star Trek. There's 2 books, the 50 years, the 50-year, 5-year mission or whatever it's called. There's a blue one and a red one. In the second part, in the red one, there's this thing that everybody calls the Singer pitch. It's not the Singer pitch. It's the Jeff Thorne pitch.
Ah.
I wrote it. I wrote it. They had nothing to do with it. I never met those guys. I never interacted with any of them. I wrote the pitch. It is all me. There's one thing that I changed because of request, and one thing they rejected. They wanted the lead character, to be a descendant of Captain Kirk. I said, that's stupid. We shouldn't do that. They're like, we are the bosses. You're going to do that. So that was one. And I wanted to call the intelligent computer Majel. I wanted the ship's computer to be after Majel Barrett, Gene Roddenberry's wife, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh,
They're like, nah, you're not doing that. And I was like, okay, fair enough. But everything, whatever, who cares? Everything else in that pitch is me. Just me, by myself, with no assistant from anyone. But because I was a nobody writer, they call it the Singer pitch. But it doesn't matter anyway, because Jake
Always corrected it now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, life corrected all of that. So, okay. But JJ swooped in and took that away. So what you end up with is, I wrote a bunch of ancillary Star Trek material, face pressed to the glass on every Star Trek series. I pitched every series until the new Kurtzman era. I pitched every series, sold them a story here and there, but never got the brass ring. And at this point, it's doubtful that I will get to, because at my rank right now, the only way they would ask me to come in to do Star Trek would basically to be coming in to run a show. And unless I pitched them that show, which they're not really doing that right now, I can't see them reaching out to me when they already have their cluster of people that they like.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it's kind of like whatever part of the ship I was going to be on, I was on it, and now it has sailed. But that was my Star Trek. That's all of my Star Trek stuff. It's out there. You should read it. It's good stuff. I had a good time.
This is so much fun, man. I just love hearing, it's like just the history of some of this stuff.
By the way,
Yeah.
when you think I'm kidding, I'm not. This is the book that I
No.
told my first Star Trek story to.
There it
Star Trek, yeah, see? Right on a bookshelf. And how did I know? We didn't even know we were going to talk about that.
A few rapid fire for fun here. Best advice
Okay.
you've ever received as a writer.
Don't censor yourself. That's the editor's job.
Oh, that's good. Worst advice you've ever received.
Figure out what the trend is and copy that, right?
Yeah.
Vampire
Yeah.
novels are in right now. Go write one. Nope. That's the worst advice anyone. That's the rank amateur advice. Don't do that.
3 mistakes young writers make.
Don't be a know-it-all. Do not inject your politics into the writing of someone else's show unless requested. Okay. If the show's about that, great. If the show's not about that, but you in your personal life have some really big issue that you always want to talk about, the way to get fired is to bend someone else's show towards your issue. Right? Do not take a job where you feel like, oh, I can bend this show about, Girl Scouts into my treatise against war overseas. No. Do not do that unless the showrunner indicates that they want you to do that. Because I promise you, you will pay for that through the nose. You will pay for that with your chair at the table.
Got it.
And 3, don't be a dick. Like, we got enough
Yeah.
dicks. We got enough dicks in Hollywood. We're full of. There's no reason for you to do it. Doesn't help you. It does not help you. Always the first response is no. So whatever you pitch, you're not selling it, right? What they want to know is, are you an orchard or are you a tree? If you're just a tree with one apple, I can't use you. But if you're a freaking orchard, even if some of the apples don't taste very good, we got all of these trees. I'm going to drive by your orchard every once in a while and go, hey, yeah, let's try some apples, right? But remember we went by and there was just that one tree and it had a crappy apple on it? Fuck that guy, right? That's Hollywood. That's Hollywood, though. So the hardest thing for writers to go is you can't come in with just one. You have to have a minimum of 5 things so that you keep the conversation going. We're all conditioned to want to have a pleasant interview meeting where the person you have the interview with is happy to see you. Thank you very much, sir or ma'am. It was a great time. I hope I get the job. I'm a lovely person. You're a lovely person. Goodbye. No, 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 no. You want them to have allotted 15 minutes for you, and you look up and oh shit, we were in here an hour. That's what you want, and the only way to do it is if you have more things to talk about, if they request. If
Yeah,
they
yeah,
say,
yeah.
"Do you have anything else?" You have to have something else.
What are you really excited about right now? 2026 as a writer, in the business, what is exciting you about the future of the industry right now?
We could literally have a whole TED Talk about this. The things that scare me are sometimes the things that also excite me. I think
Mm.
that there's a democratization of who gets to make stuff that has been ongoing with the advent of various technologies. We're not talking about AI, which I am rabidly against, but the ability to do certain things that used to be only in the hands of long-term practitioners, the ability to distribute work, the ability to get eyes on your property, the ability to make properties. I've been singing this song for over a decade now. For what it costs to do a summer softball league, you can make a pretty kick-ass show. You can make a pretty kick-ass movie if you have the tools and the talent to do it, but you do. There are people who are just on YouTube alone, people in Norway there's a little company in Norway, and all they do is go, "You know what they did in Dune? Look what we did in our backyard with these tools that you can buy," right? Like, that level of being able to make stuff just gives me so much joy for the future because there's a kid in Omaha, there's a kid in Appalachia, there's a kid in the South Bronx who never had access, couldn't buy it, couldn't get it, didn't know that this was what they want to do. Have you ever looked at all these Nigerian kids who are like with just a cell phone making these freaking epic battle sequences? And I'm like, hire that guy as your stunt coordinator. Find that 12-year-old. This guy's a genius. But I wouldn't even know about that person if not for trickle down of technology and democratization of distribution. Now, that's at the maker level. At heart, I'm always going to be a guerrilla filmmaker, always. But at the macro level, those same technologies squash the industry, flatten it out, make everything sort of homogenized and generic. And you have to fight. You watch people who are just, I just want to make a good movie. And then the corporate side, so again, I'm not even at the level of AI. It just all gets flattened out because of algorithms and things which should only be used to help. So it's a push and pull, and those are the things I'm excited about. I'm excited that many new voices can make many amazing new things, and we get to see them, and we get to acknowledge their genius. There's a Shakespeare out there that would never have gotten near our eyes if not for the level of technology that we have. Now, this conversation you couldn't have a show. Like, there are just so many things that can be done without asking for freaking permission.
That's everything. That's ev
Yeah.
that's it. First of all, it's a beautiful sentiment. Thank you for that because so much of what I agree with 100% with what you're saying. So much of my own personal philosophy is just you don't ask for permission. That like
Don't. Why wait?
that that's where we are right now. And on that note, thank you very much for the
My
time.
pleasure.
My pleasure.
Listen, everybody, you've been listening to The Business of Film. Our guest today, the amazing Geoffrey Thorne. My dog, Indy, she loved this podcast as much as I did. And if you like the pod, please push subscribe. And wherever you have that little follow button,
I
we need
understood
it.
that reference. I understood that reference.
Drop a question if you have one. We will answer it wherever this is live, wherever this is meeting your ears. You can find us at askbofpod@gmail.com. We'll see you next time on The Business of Film. Until then, good luck and go get it.